Hey, you want a free PSC bow? I'm gonna make it simple for you. Like, comment, subscribe to the channel. If you're subscribed and you're liking and you're commenting on our videos, you're entered in the giveaway. We're gonna give a free PSC bow away again. You heard it here first, a free PSC bow. All right, guys, I'm guilty of it. Everybody is. I got a nice Can-Am. You can't help but to drive the thing around on your property, but maybe it's an ATV for you. Hell, maybe you got a little Jeep, maybe you got an e-bike. There's these different tools that we can use on a property to get around. How much does it really impact your property? Well, I'm here to break down the situations kind of in which you should or shouldn't be using them. A lot of guys really believe that walking to all your tree stands is the best option sometimes, and sometimes it is and sometimes it's not. How much does using these tools really affect the deer hunting on your property? Thankfully, I get to travel the country and see a lot of properties. That's what I do for a living. I get to see situations in which UTVs and ATVs are beneficial, and I get to see situations in which they are ruining a property. And I'm going to explain some of those to you so that you can understand this and maybe decipher whether or not you should be doing what you're doing or start doing something different on your property. So let's talk about ATVs here for a second, and UTVs. If deer become used to seeing the UTV, ATV driving around your property in the off season, and they don't associate it with danger, means you're not running down deer, you're not doing any harm with that UTV, and your neighbors also are not, and you know that, then I think it's safe to get away with using a UTV more often on your property. And in fact, I would almost prefer it in some instances. Why? I would like to let the deer know almost to a certain extent that I'm coming into the property, but if I'm on this machine and they've associated it with no danger at this point, basically, there's a better chance that these deer stay bedded and they watch you go along at a nice little clip. And that's why I like using a Rambo bike too, which I can get into in a bit. They're not going to hear me, at least with that. And so many times if you're going 5-10 miles an hour, those deer just watch. And I've seen it on numerous properties. So these deer will just stay bedded. And I'd like to know what's going on your property. I'd like more feedback and more intel as to what you guys are seeing on your given property. So drop that down in the comments. But for the most part, if your neighbors aren't pressuring the deer and running the deer down with your equipment, and you're out there pretty consistently and you're doing it on a UTV, keep using that UTV to get closer to your stand locations. The other perk to doing this is you're not laying down ground scent. Yes, they might hear you on that Can-Am, maybe not if you're using the Rambo bike, but they might hear you, but you're not laying down the ground scent, which is ultimately going to stay there for hours on end and educate the deer in the future, which is going to encourage the deer to move downwind of you and come into your stand locations, which is a great idea. Which brings me to another point. Maybe use more enclosed blinds if you can to restrict wind, your wind going in certain areas that you wish it wouldn't. So going back to the UTV, ATV side of things, if you're not spending enough time on your property, let's say you have the cabin and you're out there all the time. Great. Let's keep using the ATV, UTV. But if you're the guy that only makes it out there every once in a while and all of a sudden everything's quiet, and boom, something starts up. What are those deer doing? A light bulb goes off in their head and they're like, hey, something's going on, guys. Like, this is not normal. That's a scenario in which you might want to switch to an e-bike or something like that. Walking is fine if you can't afford any of these cool toys. Obviously, everybody'd love to have the toys if they can, but you got to realize you're laying down ground scent. So if you think your deer are a bit more pressured, I'd go more towards the e-bike route. You get in fast. If the deer do see you, you're moving along at a decent enough clip. Hopefully they don't get scared off. You're not like stopping and looking at them. You're just going. You're moving along at a decent clip, and by the time they have the time to react, they've watched you go by. And even from a strategic standpoint, we think about scent dispersal on a given property. It might take you 30 minutes to walk into a stand. If we use one of these tools, it might take you 2 minutes. So that's 2 minutes of scent dispersal versus 30. Now we get up into an enclosed blind like we've talked about, more bulletproof. It was 2 minutes or 5 minutes of scent dispersal and pressure on a property versus 30 minutes of you walking in and 30 minutes of you going up in an open tree stand location. So there's a time and a place in which you should be using ATVs and UTVs on your property and e-bikes. A lot of times you think just leave it alone, leave it natural. And there's a time and a place for that, but you need to look at your given situation. Are you at the property enough? What are your neighbors doing? Do you have those neighbors that are shooting everything and are pressuring the property? Then minimal impact is going to be the way to go. But you really need to look at your overall situation. But all I can do is tell you about the situations that I've seen and which tool will work best. And that's what I've seen. I've been on properties where we go within 30 yards of these deer bedded in a cedar thicket, and they're just looking at you, and we're just clipping along at 3 miles an hour in a UTV. They do not care. If I were to walk past them, we would have blew them out. But now that ATV might have been able, or that UTV might have been able to get me to my stand location, and ultimately just get me to my stand location without pressuring a bunch of deer. Yeah, they hear it, but they hear it all the time. So when to use the ATV, UTV, e-bike, maybe, that's when I would do it, guys. So if you like these videos, you like these quick tips, like, comment, subscribe, always dropping new content. See you next time.